Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ian as a Weirdo. Today's a very special episode. Today we have Lori's Stories and Crochet, and we're going to talk a little bit about mental health. We're going to continue the mental health interviews. Welcome, Lori.
Hi, it's lovely to be here.
Happy to have you. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your history with mental health.
Yeah, I've been aware of mental health challenges since I was pretty young because my mom had struggled so much with what do they call it? Major depressive disorder. And so as long as she was medicated, she was okay, but she was not okay if she wasn't on medication. And so it was but it took her a while to get there. So I was aware of it. And I knew how that looked. And then my sister showed similar symptoms, and also for them, the same medication worked. For me, it all looks very different. How I experience depression is not what most people would associate with depression. For me, what happens is I would say I go emotional flatline. I don't feel anything. I don't feel happy. I don't feel sad. I don't feel depressed. I feel nothing. And knowing any of you that know my personality, that's like the worst possible feeling for me ever. Like it's not, I, it's miserable. It's,
Not
it's a
that.
different kind of miserable. Um, so my doctor correctly identified it. Um, Mine seemed very hormonally connected. And so I did not medicate in the standard way, where it was like daily. It was only certain times of the month, and it would be like 3 to 5 days. This is not normal standard treatment at all. Obviously, I was working with a talk therapist as well, but she wasn't a prescribing doctor, so I had to go back to my regular doctor, and then they would have notes with each other, or however all that works with HIPAA. I don't know, who knows. But yeah, it was then that I was like, oh, this is not the first time I've had this experience, but it was the first time I was in talk therapy to talk about, hey, this is what I'm feeling, which is nothing. And the therapist is like, no, go, go talk to your doctor. The doctor agreed, yes, this is definitely major depressive disorder. And it was diagnosed at that time. I've never been diagnosed with anxiety disorders, but I'm pretty sure I uh, had, have, whichever, that as well. Sorry, my fire alarm just decided to test itself. Um,
It's fine. That's par for the course when
yeah,
I'm
right,
working with this.
right.
Mhm.
But yeah. So and I found some more unconventional ways of handling anxiety. And then with the major depressive disorder, for me, one of the major solutions was not the medication. Eventually, it's listed as an allergy for me because uh, Prozac specifically gives me nightmares and extreme paranoia type anxiety or paralyzing, awful. So I can't take that. And then I realized I had started taking a really kind of expensive but top of the line type probiotic. Talked to my doctor about it because I said, I haven't needed the Prozac because this was all before it became an issue, um, for months. And she said, well, tell me about what other changes you had. And I said, well, I started taking a probiotic. And she said, add fish oil. Luckily, I had a very progressive doctor. And she said, there's a lot of research saying that if you have, quality gut health, it can basically kind of fix or mostly fix some of the, for some people, the chemical imbalance with major depressive disorder. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean it's going to work for everyone,
Can like smooth
but
out the bumps a little bit.
right, right. And because I wasn't at risk of harming myself, it was safer for me to just not. It was okay for me to not be medicated because and I haven't really needed it. How I ended up discovering the allergy was what we'll talk about later after becoming labeled disabled.
Mhm.
That's that was a whole thing. But with the mental health awareness, again, it was like all of a sudden when, oh, feeling nothing is actually in this umbrella that I always thought was like sad or morose or down or suicidal or whatever else might be in that category that we think of. But for me, and I guess it can't be that abnormal because it was very easily diagnosed by them.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's depression.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely identify with that. I would not say all of my depressive episodes have apathy. That's usually where
Mhm.
what I label it, where it's like, I just don't care. Uh, like I'm
Yeah.
just so like too exhausted to give a shit.
Yeah.
So I don't. So it's like I don't feel, but then for me, that can also go to a place of it could get to a dangerous place because I don't care about being alive or like
Right.
something to that extent. So
Right.
I could see how, for people who also experience that apathy,
Hmm.
that it can stay there and it can deepen and worsen to a place where you don't care so much that it does get to a dangerous place. So,
Right.
it's not always like sad, crying, and while those are
Right.
valid
Right.
depressive experiences, there are many different ways that it can look. Sometimes it's being very irritable and just
Right.
over
Yep.
it
Yep.
and ready to give up. And that can be a way to be depressed too. It can look a bunch of different ways. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Um, so this is like a two-part question. So
Yeah.
how do you take care of yourself when you are feeling depressed or anxious? And then what have you found makes it better or worse? And you talked a little bit about that already.
Yeah. Yeah. I have many things. I talked about the gut health piece. I do make sure I take a very good probiotic, but I need to do that too post my hiatal hernia acid reflux surgery because I'm not on any meds for that anymore. But if you don't take a good probiotic, your gut health can really get out of whack. Um, so I that's one way. Obvious. I mentioned that I do talk therapy. I changed therapists after becoming to where I was like that disabled label was really impacting me, and even just the physical taxation of the migraines, of dealing with it every single day, no matter what. Um, so I needed somebody that could help me deal with that. So for me, talk therapy is essential. I I've done neurofeedback. I've done TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation. Again, all of these things you have to make sure uh, that you don't have contraindications with other things.
Mhm.
Um, but let's see, what else do I do? I've not done acupuncture for it, but I did find sometimes chiropractic made a difference. So if my alignment, because my chiropractor just focuses on the upper cervical, this part of the spine, and I've found that sometimes if that was really out of whack, he would put my head on straight as my standing joke. And yes, his name is actually Dr. Hug. It's fantastic. But it sometimes that misalignment can really be throwing off my emotional uh, center as well. So sometimes that's indicated for me. What are other ways I take obviously crafting. I really like doing things for others. That's just kind of my thing.
Mhm.
Uh, I very rarely make things for myself, but sometimes I do. I paint. I'm more likely to paint for myself than to crochet for myself. Uh, so that's, and painting for me is probably more relaxing or therapeutic than crocheting. Crocheting is the repetitive kind of relaxation, but the painting is the more creative, like it lets that creative side out. Being a mathematician, most people don't associate that with creativity, right? I certainly didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's an argument can be made either way. I guess it depends on
Hmm. Right,
what you're doing, but I don't know. I
right,
always find there is some creativity with math.
right,
It's
right. I just
scratched an
didn't see it.
itch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just didn't see it that way because when I grew up, or until MC Escher came out with all of his stuff, all of his art, it was very mathematical and like how you distort things and you can have a both two-dimensional and three-dimensional object in the Mobius strip and fascinating stuff like that. That's all art based, but it's mathematical. It's all very interesting. But before that, I wouldn't have really recognized that as creativity, or that math was so creative. But I mean, of course it is. It shapes stitch multiples, whatever. It's like it's all mathematical, right? So I mean, I can see it, but I just didn't grow up thinking of myself as creative. I never realized that I was. It was not until I was much older that I realized that. So yeah, those are what other outlets for my mental health. Oh, just, sometimes playing board games with the family. Or we used to do murder mysteries with a group of people. We need to join this other group of people because that group kind of fell apart. And also everybody was spread apart really far away. So this other group already has something going on consistently. So just need to go join their group because we've been invited. So it's a lot of
Sounds
fun.
cool. That
Yeah,
sounds
it's
cool.
just, yeah, it's and that's really fun. It's like the fantasy of feeling like you're doing something good, right? Solving a murder mystery like that's or whatever kind of mystery it might be. The most engaging one was actually a ghost hunting one. That was really interesting. But yeah, so playing connecting with friends. I do my best to make sure I connect with my um friends periodically, at least every like face to face, at least every few months. And it's just because they're all still, well, with the exception of one, they're all still, the ones I can see in person are all still working. So I have to, like, I'm the one with the flexible schedule, other than my babysitting, babysitting my grandkids, not like babysitting like a job. So. Yeah, those are the things that are really good for me. I really, really enjoy the mysteries. Those are fun.
Yeah, sounds great. Very
Yeah,
fun. Um, so you mentioned becoming disabled, and we've talked about
mm,
the grief we've both experienced from
yeah,
becoming disabled. And could you share a little bit about those feelings and how they've evolved for you?
yeah. So coincidentally, it had nothing to do with 2020, but when I got the label and I became disability retired from being a high school teacher, which I loved my job. It was my decision to pursue um, pursue disability retirement because I had enough years in the district and all, or in the state as a teacher and all that. Um, I wasn't old enough because I was short of 50 years old. So because I was going to try to do it another way that I wouldn't have to have the disability label associated with my retirement. But because I was under 50, I I couldn't do it. So I had to go that route. But I had decided that because I knew I could not be my best for my students. I could not be who I had been. I had been a very good teacher, and I was not a very good teacher. I'm not saying I was a bad teacher in the end. I was just not a very good teacher, and I was like, my students deserve better than I can give them. So because I was missing a lot because of the migraines, my principal said, you should probably look into this, um, and see see what you need to do, what you think. So I had started doing paperwork before Christmas break, so in 2019. And so luckily I had started then because then I had all this documentation. So people who had seen me teach for years, I had them come in my room and take notes and describe the changes in my classroom. And I said, don't worry about hurting my feelings, even though I had to mentally separate my feelings.
Yeah.
I need you to be brutally honest because I need this for my paperwork. Just be as brutally honest as you need to be. You can talk about how great I was and how not great I am now, and be as honest as you need to be. So, that process, I was able to, in that time, separate it out. But then, like really looking at some of the things and hearing I if I wasn't looking at your face and seeing you in the front of the classroom, I would not have believed that was your classroom. Like it was that extreme. And so for me, it was not just the disability, it was also like the career I loved. I loved my coworkers. And then of course 2020 happened, which sped up my process. But again, thank goodness I had all my paperwork, my ducks in a row prior. I lasted 1 week as an online teacher, and then I had the long-term sub for the rest of that school year. Um, and I think it didn't really hit me until I got started getting once I had different insurance. I was thankfully my husband I'd already been being double covered. It was a whole that was the medical insurance thing was a whole thing, but um, it probably It probably was the beginning of that next school year where the grief of disability was very uh, I that's where I went probably back into the numb. I feel nothing. Um, I can't control it, babe. It's okay. Love you. Um, so uh yeah, he's gonna head to work, but that's where the grief started. And then there was here I am, I'm not working and I'm not better. So then I was very angry.
Mhm.
So that was difficult. But by being out of the insurance I was on and going to, his insurance, I was able to get things like Nurtec. So I got a new neurologist that was one of many. He's not my current, um, because he was a sleep specialist. He was not a migraine specialist. Finally, I'm with a migraine specialist, but he was able to give me new medication. Like he said, try these two, Ubrelvy and Nurtec. See which one works better. Don't try them at the same time, clearly, but they do have to tell you that. Anyway, so with these new treatments, things were better. but I'm like, I am sitting around the house because it's 2020. I got robbed of having any kind of retirement ceremony because it was 2020. Again, I was going to disability retire regardless, but it still stole 2 or 3 weeks of me being with students. Um, not that the time was, but I needed to have a short-term disability a certain amount of time before I could put in my application anyway. That was all that. But then sometimes it can, I mean, we're 6 years out almost exactly from when I retired or retired, because again, it wasn't really a traditional way. Uh, and I still like it is so hard to accept that I am actually disabled. This is not something that's just going to go away. This is not something I'm not going to be able to function the way I was prior to 2018 is when the migraine started for me, but in that time, that's how short of a time the process was for me to my abilities to deteriorate to the point of being considered permanently disabled. And but yeah, I mean, it can be weird things that trigger that grief, which we were talking a little bit about grief the other night, and you don't know why. Sometimes you don't realize it's grief. Um, but yeah, sometimes like just going, "Ugh, I am actually disabled. It sucks. It just, sometimes I'm sad. Like I said, I definitely went through an angry period because I'm like, I don't get to do what I loved as a job, and I'm still not any better. I mean, I was better, but not much.
Yeah. Still can't
And
function and work. And
right, right.
yeah.
And I literally couldn't work with this disability retirement. I wasn't allowed to work.
Mhm.
Um, I certainly couldn't teach. Uh, and I think there was probably a limit on how much I could even earn. I can't, I can't hold the job down, accepting that I would be a terrible employee. That's like not who I was, but that's who I am. Like currently, I can't have a traditional job. Once a week babysitting is challenging enough for me as it is. Like, and that's just my own grandkids. Can't imagine if I was babysitting for somebody else. I mean, that's so the grief is strange, and it's ex accepting the word is still a hard pill to swallow. I don't know. I still have a hard time referring to myself as disabled, but I am.
Mm. I don't know about you. For me, when it came to like accept that word accepting, I
Hmm.
felt like it was almost synonymous with like resigning
Mm,
and giving up.
mm,
And
mm,
I didn't want to give up. I wanted
mm.
to be able to push forward, but I couldn't. Like you're walking through wet cement, you're you're trying to get over these hurdles, but the hurdles are impossibly large, and you can't. But if I didn't know there wasn't I didn't have any in between not doing anything at all and just like being totally stationary and going full speed and doing my job. And so if I accepted that I was disabled, it would be 0 miles per hour. And I
Yeah,
didn't know what that would be like.
right,
So I don't know
right.
if you can relate to that. It is very challenging, and I don't think that there's any way that we can anticipate those feelings if we are, when we get suddenly, knocked over the head by these health issues. It's just
right,
You don't know how you're going to deal with it, and you don't know what it's going to be like.
right.
Um,
And even though I thought, okay, I'm going to retire then, here, even that got changed
hmm,
because it was 2020. So,
yeah, yeah. Oof, that was a year. That
yeah,
was a
yeah.
year.
The year that
Oh,
was a decade. Yes, it was it was a difficult time.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it was like, and there was so much isolation anyway, in a weird way. I think the beginning of the school year, it almost helped me. I think it was the second school year that it was really, I would have the nightmares of, oh my gosh, I'm late to work and all that kind of stuff. And the grief cycle is definitely different. Yeah, acceptance. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the label, it's still hard for me to accept the
hmm,
label.
yeah,
It's,
I get that.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's, and again, I'm 6 years out almost exactly. I definitely have it. I've been out of the classroom for over 6 years. Um, and it sometimes still really just is, it makes me sad or it makes me angry or it makes me irritable or, or the bargaining, the bargaining I did through tutoring. I was like,
Yes,
if I just tutor a little bit, I won't have to count it as income. And because I didn't tutor very much, because again, I'm unreliable. Um, as far as a regular kind of job that I have to show up to consistently.
yeah. Yeah, I wanted to do that same, like I wanted to tutor because I was like, oh yeah, that's
Hmm.
great, like middle ground or something, just anything to
Hmm.
kind of get those neurons firing again.
Hmm.
And then I was like, I can't tutor. Like, it's like for me, that's where I was, and I was like, I
Hmm.
can't even do that.
Hmm. I can't even do that. Yep.
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 And it's tough. It's really
And
tough.
it's hard. And then you go through the cycle again.
Yep,
It's, uh,
it's
yeah.
tough. So, so I was wondering, is there anything that you'd like people to know about mental health? And then what would you say to someone who's going through a hard time right now?
What would I say to somebody? What?
It's a two-part. I can ask them I can ask them
Okay.
separately. So the first is there anything you'd
Okay.
like people to know about mental health?
Right. Mental health care is health care. And it can come in a whole heck of a lot of forms. Again, I am married to a first responder. I He's in the military and he's in law enforcement. Um, I'm grateful every day. He's in a non-deployable position currently. So I don't have to worry about him being sent anywhere. But for people who are in a traditional military household, that there I there are resources for you. Make sure you're getting good support systems. And then for his regular job, he's in the jail. So again, I don't have to be as fearful. He's out on the street in danger in the same way. But there are resources and there's things he has to deal with. I mean,
Hmm.
eh, that I, that you just, I mean, he's literally resuscitated somebody he was successful, but sometimes they're not successful even when they try. So, you know, it,
That's a unique
I appreciate
challenge.
his,
Yeah,
what's that?
I think that's a unique challenge that he's got to face. He's a lot more likely to face than a
Yes.
civilian.
Yes. Yes. Then you're like, as a teacher, we had to do the first aid and we had to be aware. He's, that is not, that's not the only time it's happened on his shift. It's the only time that he was the one. And then the other people, it was just, who was doing the walk or whatever they call it. Anyway, like I said, he's seen people be successful. He's seen people not be successful in resuscitating. So he was lucky that he was successful. Um, but my friend who works for the fire department, it, she has a focus. She tries to make sure all of her firefighters have resources because they're very vulnerable. Paramedics, people in the medical profession. Um, so resources for them, but not just them, their families, because sometimes I needed to watch for signs that my husband wasn't, he was maybe not working through those issues. Like it was, it was building up,
Mhm.
um, stuff that was going on. And so, but luckily he listens to me and I knew to say, hey, this is what I'm observing. And I know your office has lots of resources, but again, they also have resources for me. So that's how I was able to get TMS and neurofeedback and some of those things that are too pricey for people to do out of pocket. Um,
Mhm.
but his
And all
office had
the,
it. Yeah.
oh, sorry, those resources that you mentioned the other day in your video for first
Yes.
responders, I'm gonna make sure I get those from you, and they're gonna be in
Okay.
the
Yes.
description for people here. Um,
Yes.
so double up.
So yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's yes, the more resources we can put out there, the better. But again, that one of them, the NAMI, I don't remember what it stands for, national something,
The
but
National Alliance of Mental Illness.
thank you. Thank you. That one had
Been there.
like so many
Mhm.
subcategories.
Yeah.
That would be my, if whatever category you might fit, it's going to be there. So that one would be the one I would say that one's really for everyone. I linked the specific section that was for first responders, but um, I was impressed with that website. But I think it could be overwhelming too. So if you're in crisis, there's crisis lines and all of that. Um, yeah, and again, just recognizing, just reiterating that depression does not, it has many faces. It does not look the same for
Mhm.
everyone.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And so the second part of the question was, what would you say to someone who's going through a tough time mentally right now? And I think you've hit it really well. So I don't know if there's anything additional
I'll
you would
just,
add.
yeah, I'll just summarize. Like it depends on the person and what they're going through. Sometimes I will be, okay, talk to me about what you're going through. And sometimes I will say, hey, this sounds like someone, you need to get some tools. You need to get some, somebody professional. Here's some resources for you. Or if somebody was in full crisis, I might make the crisis phone call on their phone and hey, give them a talk, because I know when I'm out of my depth. But sometimes they just need to be listen, somebody needs to listen to them.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, because I think recognizing exactly what you said, like recognizing that sometimes it's just not like exactly what you said. Like sometimes it's not within your depth, and it's you're doing the best service to your friend, your loved one, if you help, you know, direct them to where they can get the best help. And there's no shame in saying, I don't know how to deal with that
right.
particular situation, or maybe
Hmm.
like, you know, I whatever it is, like I'm you can get better help here, and I want that for you, and support you through that. So speaking of support, what makes you feel most supported in your mental health, and who or what is your support system?
So two things. My husband's supporting what I'm doing with the chaos of my YouTube channel and yarn and all of that. He's always been my biggest support since shortly after I met him, which is where our 10th wedding anniversary is this summer. So very exciting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but he's been super supportive, but I also knew when I needed more than that. I do know that I need to connect with my sister periodically. I need to connect with my in-person friends periodically. I like talking to my YouTube friends like you, um, about stuff where we're not talking on YouTube, necessarily, but just talking about life. So, in addition to my family and my friends, my family is bigger than just my kids and my husband and my stepdaughters. It's also, and my aunts and uncles. I'm very close with one of my aunts, my mom's sisters. Uh, so I have extended family. So I have a very large support system naturally built in that a lot of people don't. Um, but there are support systems beyond that too for me, like the mental health care professionals that I do see. And then there are support groups out there. My therapist is trying to convince me to start one. So I might do that at some point if I can figure out how to fit that into my life. But there are support groups out there. That's part of the reason I've been working with her so much, trying to find one. There isn't one there. The closest one to me that's like, that would work for me in terms of the medical disability is almost an hour drive, and that's if there's no traffic. So I'm like, mm. And there's almost always traffic. It's no LA traffic, but but you're probably looking at an hour and a half. Like,
Mhm.
so I'm like, eh. So I don't know. At some point that so support groups, there are so many kinds of support groups, um, for something that Ian and I talked about once in uh in a private conversation. I think we were chatting. Um, I don't think we were face to face, but people have heard about postpartum depression. Um, I just wanted to make you all aware, if you didn't know, that men can, and Ian put a post about this, men can experience it too. And I think that that's a really important thing to realize, that just like the depression I experience isn't the stereotypical face of depression, men can very much experience that postpartum as well, just like um, men should check for breast cancer too. Like it's all
Yeah, the statistics for I believe the statistics for um, postpartum disorders, like mood disorders for women was like 1 in 5, about 1 in 5,
yeah, that sounds right.
and it was 1 in 10 for men, for the
Yeah.
fathers. And behaviors can look a little bit different,
Hmm.
given the situation. But I when you said it, I couldn't remember if I had heard of it or not. I think I had heard of it, but it's kind of like, is this a
Right.
myth or not? I'd done zero research.
Right.
Um, but the prevalence and, that they're experiencing actual hormonal changes, which,
Right.
you would
Right.
expect from the women who give birth, but
Right.
not necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of those
Right.
changes. So I'm so glad you mentioned it, and that I could share
Right.
some resources and some
Right.
information about it.
So that's a random aside to that. But the fact that it's 10 up to 10% of the men, and does anybody talk about it? I I never heard anybody talk about it. My daughter was a psychology major. That's how I know about it. She
Yeah.
recognized it.
Yeah.
But
And then the more we talk about it, the more awareness there is, and
yes,
it radiates outwards. And
yes.
you never know who that type of information is gonna help, you
Hmm.
know? And maybe,
Hmm.
I don't know, someone directly that it'll help, but, you know, six degrees of separation or whatever
Right,
it
right,
is, it could help someone. So
right,
by talking about this is helpful.
right. And also realizing that depression it can look a lot of different ways.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that that's the value of knowing someone deeply. And when you start to see changes, whether,
Yes.
they're sad or they're
Hmm.
withdrawn or
Hmm.
they're, anything that stands out, um, you know, being close to people and seeing these changes, that's how you can help them get through these tough times.
Right.
I mean, really, there's so many disorders that don't present all the time, like you would expect, and um, oftentimes get overlooked,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And so, I think that that's a really great point. That can
Yeah.
look a lot of different ways, but when people start acting differently, start check in with your friends, check in with your family.
Yes. Absolutely. And
Well,
I've told my husband what to watch for. I said, if you hear me saying these things or if you see me doing these things, this is what I need from you because I don't realize it's happening in the moment. So so he's gotten really good at now he knows what to look for. So if you're aware of your tells,
mhm,
having someone that you can share that with is great. But a lot of people don't know some of their tell. I certainly don't know all of them. I'm aware of a few of them. So doing what Ian said, watching, checking in with your friends if something seems different, the behavior is different or more withdrawn or more way outgoing, like way any extreme change is something's going on.
mhm, exactly. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Lori. Is there anything that you'd like to add? You've imparted us with a bunch of, I don't know if that's the right word that I'm looking for, but we're going with it.
Yeah.
You've laid down a lot of great information, and great stories, which I would expect your stories to be top tier.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else for today?
I think that's all that I can think of at the moment. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us, Lori.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to me, as always. Thank you for being a great friend and
Yes, you
and
too.
sharing your experience because I think that this is super important. So, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll talk to you later.